The title I came up with was, Are You Yearning for the Past or Having Faith in God? And that word yearning really came to my heart. Because the yearning is not just like, not even a fondness. It's a desire to go back somewhere else, to be somewhere else. Maybe pre-2020. There are a lot of pre-2020 things that I enjoyed that I'm like, it's just not, we're not there anymore. And I'll be honest, one of them was Pastor Henry.
Yeah, I'm gonna put
he's part of that pre-2020. So, but here's what's interesting. I was looking at Lot's situation in Sodom and Gomorrah, and it's fascinating because when you actually read the story, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but you start to see Lot's character and you start to see some issues. In fact, dare I say, one of the things that I even brought up to Pastor Donna was that we know Lot's wife looked back and became a pillar of salt, but his wife yearning for that past, looking back, in some measure might have been a result of where Lot's heart was at. So she wasn't just doing a thing on her own. She was actually reflecting, I believe, a lot of the indecisiveness that you can actually see in Lot as he is grappling with an uncomfortable situation. But I think sometimes the danger, so part of the question here that I even began with is, are we trapped in a situation where we don't really like where we're at, but yet we're more comfortable with the torment we do know than the potential that we don't know? Does that make sense? So it's not that Lot loved his life. In fact, there are a lot of things in Lot's situation. Just before this, right, these men that come to Lot are not men. They're angels. They just look like men. But understand that where Lot was living was not good. This was definitely the bad part of town. I mean, he had guests coming, and people are knocking on the door saying, we want to, and this is the word I came up before I came up here. It's not untrue, but it might leave out a little bit of the details. We want to assault these men. And then, do you know what Lot's response is? You can have my daughters. Like, what? I don't think his daughters were like, yeah, that sounds great. Sign me up for that. In fact, I mean, it's probably not a joking matter, but I was telling Pastor Don, I said, so what happened when he had out-of-town guests? You know, this is not a very pleasant situation that he's living in. But this is not a good situation he's living in. Yet, what I see in this story is he's still kind of like, but I have to leave? Are you sure? Like, I mean, I guess this isn't good, but really go now? And I think the question that I want to propose to all of us is that, see, I think part of the reality of what I was even telling Pastor Donna about I heard, and I know that Pastor Donna and Pastor Scott have been talking about this being a new era for a while now. And I do believe it's true, because I believe that it's actually a torment to try to figure out what's happening in the world right now based upon what has been. Because things that are happening right now don't reflect what was happening 10 years ago. It's not brand new to God, but to us as humans, it's brand new, because we live through different seasons. But I was even thinking about this, that the youngest men, right, in the mid-1800s who lived through the Civil War, like they fought in the Civil War, they came out of the Civil War, because I remember there was footage of this. I think it was like in the 1930s, right, the final guys that were, about to pass on. Can you imagine how different that was? Living through like the 1870s to the 1930s, 1920s, like that was literally a different world to these guys. I mean, electricity was not something they ever thought about. I mean, you hunted for food. You didn't go to a market, and that started to become a thing. But understand that's the way. But so my concern in all this is, the reason why I said, are you yearning for the past or having faith toward God, is that the question is, my concern in this season is that I believe that a lot of people may not make it, but I want you to make it. Now, why do I say that? Because I was even telling Pastor Don on Friday night in preparation for this, is that there's one piece of research, it's funny, it was brought back up to me, about Emmy Werner, this woman who had done this longitudinal study in Hawaii, had actually found that the difference between children who thrive in bad situations versus those who don't is not based upon your situation, it's based upon your perspective. That means you can literally have two people who are living the exact same situation, but the way they look at the situation is whether they do well or do poorly. And how did she describe this? This is how she described it. She said, there could be two children literally walking to school through a literal war zone. That means when they walk through these streets, there is rubble everywhere. And she also grew up in post-World War II Germany, from what I understood. So she literally had seen this, where all the landmarks are blown up. But one child can look at all the desolation around them and go, this is really bad. But the other child could be looking and saying, I'm going to school, I'm going to get out of here, there's a future for me, I'm excited about today. She said one child will make it and one child will not. And in these days, if you're yearning for something that you can't have anymore, the good old days, you're not going to make it. Some people are even yearning for promises they were given by their parents. This is how the future's going to look in your generation. And now they're outraged. My parents lied to me. Nothing like they told me it would be. Well, you can be outraged, but one will make it and one will not. Can you embrace today for what it is and stop looking at what it isn't? And say, Father, what do you have for me right now? And that's why I want to bring Lot's story up in this conversation, because he actually is a great example of this. He was given the future, but he was still stuck in the past. And he was wavering. Because what I read about with Lot's situation, I'll give this as a backstory about this, and it's very basic. But when you look at Lot's situation, him leaving Sodom and Gomorrah would be arguably the most traumatic thing he ever remembered in his life. In that situation, he lost his wife, and something unpleasant happened with him and his daughters that I'm not going to bring up here. But I don't think he looked back on that situation and went, this was the day my life turned around. But I'm going to submit to you that it wasn't his situation as to why it happened that way. It was what his choice was in his heart. And it could have been, even though it doesn't say in Scripture, it could have been that if he had had faith toward God, it could have been a brand new season and a brand new adventure that he would have looked back and said, this was the best day of my life. Not the day I remember when everything fell apart. But it wasn't found in what happened. It was found in his decision or indecision that the problems came. Does that make sense? All right. So I'm going to read the scripture, and then we're going to start talking. I'm excited about the conversation we're going to have because I have no clue where it's going, and that's the fun of it. So I'm reading from Genesis chapter 19, starting in verse 12. And I'll read this because I want to give it's just so interesting what's in your Bible if you actually pay attention to it. I remember that was the one thing that always profoundly impacted me about Pastor Henry. It's like he was reading from a new Bible I'd never heard before. It's just because but it wasn't that he was reading a new Bible. It was he was actually pointing out what actually happened in the Bible. I think the danger is we can have a very generic view of the Bible, and we could also view biblical characters like mythological characters, where they're a part of a storyline and a plot, but we don't realize, no, these are real people really doing things and really having problems. So let's look at his real decisions and his real problems. So this is starting verse 12 of Genesis 19. So it's Genesis 19:12. And the men said unto Lot, these were the angels, hast thou here any besides, son-in-law, and thy sons, and thy daughters, and whatsoever thou hast in the city? Bring them out of this place. This is the warning that God is giving him. For we will destroy this place, because the cry of them is waxing great before the face of the Lord, and the Lord has sent us to destroy it. Okay. And Lot went out and spake unto his sons-in-law, which married his daughters, and said, Up, get you out of this place, for the Lord will destroy the city. But he seemed as one that mocked unto his sons-in-law. They just thought he was joking around. That cost them their life. They didn't take it seriously. And when the morning arose, then the angels hastened Lot, saying, Arise, take thy wife and thy 2 daughters which are here, lest thou be consumed in the iniquity of the city. And while he lingered, the men laid hold upon his hand. So he was lingering. It says he lingered. So he was just like, okay. They're like, now. And they grabbed him by the hand. It's like, oh, I'm still thinking, did I take out the trash? Are the dogs still out back? Didn't I have to pay my taxes in 3 months? What was I going to eat for lunch? He's lingering. He's not. See, but this is the point. Verse 16 is the point at which he could have said to his wife, instead of lingering, honey, this is a brand new moment. Grab my hand. Let's run out of here. Let's rush out. We're not going to just walk out. We're going to run out of this place. We're not looking back. Let's look to the future. But I want you to see, in his heart, Lot was still looking back. His wife, unfortunately, was just the victim of her own decision, but possibly also intuiting in her heart where her husband was at. He was like, I don't know if I want to do this thing. And she was like, you know what? I've been working on that broken down house for the last 20 years. It's finally what I wanted to be. And I was going to have a garden party in 3 days, and I was going to invite my friends over. We're going to have this great day. I'm going to miss out on all. I think there was a festival that I was even going to be a part of that was going to happen in the next 3 weeks. Somehow she was looking back, but she was reflecting the fact that he didn't have the faith nor the fortitude to tell her, it's time for us to move toward the future. Okay? Because there's nothing about Lot's conversation in these scriptures that tells me he was like gung-ho for the future. He was like, I don't know, maybe. So it says, and while he lingered, the men laid hold upon his hand, and upon the hand of his wife, and upon the hand of his 2 daughters, the Lord being merciful unto him, and they brought him forth and set him without the city. And it came to pass, when they had brought them forth abroad, that he said, escape for thy life, look not behind you, neither stay thou in all the plain. Escape to the mountain, lest thou be consumed. You have to understand that God actually wanted to get rid of this plain, the entire thing. And I'm going to let you know, God did not get rid of the entire plain for Lot's sake. Because I'm sure, here's what I'm assuming you might think that happened next, or this is what I was assuming would happen in the next verse, is that this would have been the proper response is, yes, whatever you say, we're doing it. Was that Lot's response? No. Verse 18, and Lot said unto them, oh, not so, my Lord. Does that reflect faith? Was he like, yes, let's do it. Where's that mountain? Are you sure? Mountains? I didn't bring my hiking shoes. I don't know if I feel like a hike today. Can I just take a short, breezy walk? See, verse 19 says, behold now, thy servant has found grace in thy sight, and thou hast magnified thy mercy, which thou hast showed unto me in saving my life. And I cannot escape to the mountain, lest some evil take me and I die. Does that sound like fear to you? Sounds like fear to me. This isn't going to go well. But I want you to also see his heart. Doesn't this sound like a man who's still living back there? Does this sound like a guy who's living in the present and having faith for the future? Or does it seem like somebody who's still back there? What do you think? Yeah, I don't see any evidence that he's like, yes, future, potential. It's like, I don't know. Still on the fence with this whole thing. I mean, I'll share one of the iniquities that I inherited that I think has been a bane to my marriage and my life is I wait. Now, there's a good kind of waiting. There's a bad kind of waiting. Like, don't get me wrong. I think there's a balance and patience. But sometimes I wait to see what's going to happen before I make a decision. But I'm not waiting for a good reason. I'm waiting because I want to see what happens so that I could feel my peace about what my assured outcome is going to be. But that's not faith. In fact, what that means is you're usually going to miss a lot of seasons you need because you've been waiting too long. Maybe God wants you to jump right in the middle of the middle of everything versus, well, I don't know. If I give it another 3 months, let's see what happens. That opening may not be there in 3 months. That's there right now. Okay. Now, what does it say? Verse 20. Behold now, this city is near to flee unto, and it is a little one. Oh, let me escape thither. Is it not a little one? He's like, you know what? You get rid of all this other stuff, but it's just one little spot. It's got my favorite restaurant. It's just a nice little place out of the way. It won't be a big deal to get rid of that. Just let's keep that one. But you have to understand, he's still, I think as Pastor Henry would say, he's still kind of sassing God, right? He's pushing back. Verse 21. And I didn't read the last part of verse 20. And my soul shall live. So he's like, yes, I'll be great there. And he said unto him, see, I have accepted thee concerning this thing also, that I will not overthrow this city, for the which thou hast spoken. Haste thee, escape thither, for I cannot do anything till thou become thither. I read the word, I probably shouldn't have. It's like basically when you get to where you need to go, then we're going to deal with the thing, so go. All right, that's what it's saying. Therefore the name of this city was called Zoar. The sun was risen upon the earth when Lot entered into Zoar. Then the Lord rained upon Sodom and Gomorrah brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven. He overthrew those cities. Now that's what's even more interesting. His wife didn't look back before it happened. As it's happening, as everything's falling apart, she's like, oh, look. Like, no. Don't look at that. And he overthrew those cities and the plain and all the inhabitants of the cities and that which grew upon the ground. But his wife looked back from behind him, and she became a pillar of salt. And Abraham got up early in the morning to the place where he stood before the Lord, and he looked toward Sodom and Gomorrah and toward all the all the land of the plain, and beheld, and lo, the smoke of the country went up as the smoke of a furnace. And it came to pass, when God destroyed the cities of the plain, that God remembered Abraham, and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow, when he overthrew the cities in the which Lot dwelt. But look at what happened in verse 30. And this is an interesting way to end this. But if you wondered about the character defect of Lot, whether I was seeing something or just making it up, look at what happens next. And Lot went up out of Zoar. He didn't stay there. Remember, he said, I'm going to live there. He says, and dwelt in the mountain. He finally went to the mountain afterward. But why did he go to the mountain? And his 2 daughters with him. For he feared to dwell in Zoar. So he's like, it's going to be great there. And then he goes there, he's like, I'm afraid to be here. So now he's in the mountain where he was originally going to be. And he dwelt in a cave, he and his 2 daughters. Now, I'm not reading the next part of that, but that's another part of the problem that happened. But here's another thing that I want to point out, is his life convicts me, because I think he's unfortunately a very good example or a very bad example of a very passive male who's afraid. When a man is afraid and not trusting God, then I see a very easy scenario where his daughters and his wife will take care of him, and they're going to look out for him rather than him looking out for them, because that's actually where the next part of the problem came from that I'm not going to go into. But they were looking out for him. Like, well, our dad is going to have a problem after this. We need to take care of him. No, that means that he wasn't there with his daughter saying, all right, we already had a problem, but now I think I finally woke up. Let's go. I'm going to set the agenda. We're going to keep on moving. Something good is going to eventually happen for us. But that just shows how his indecision. And so hopefully what we're taking from this, at least part of this conversation, as we're leading in, is this is not where we want to live. But part of what I want to help you to also understand is I do believe that we're in a new era. I do trust that that's true. But dare I say, in a matter of speaking, it's not that you're going to turn into pillar stop, but you kind of will. If you keep looking back at what the past used to be like 5, 6, 7 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and say, I mean, nostalgia, I think is a luxury item, and it's not one you can afford. Self-pity is a luxury you can't afford in these days. You can't be because what in a very simple way, in a matter of speaking, what happened to Sodom and Gomorrah is what your past is going to look like. You're not going to find anything that you can actually grab hold of back there. You're going to look, and it's just as relevant as fire and brimstone burning it all up. And now, that might be a fearful reality to you, but then how is it not going to be fearful? Stop looking yourself and start looking to the Father and say, Father, I don't know what today looks like, but you're going to show me what today should look like, and I'm going to learn how to take this one step at a time. And very fittingly, you're going to actually, I think in some measure, start to look like Lot's uncle, which is kind of sad. I mean, he had such a great example of faith, and here he is doing his own thing rather than going to his uncle and saying, you know, I probably shouldn't have parted ways with you. I should have stuck around a little more and seen what was going on here with you and this God that you know. Maybe I should have got to know this God as well. But it's not a fearful place. It's a different paradigm.
You know, I think it's really interesting that God always gives us these parallel stories throughout. You know, you got the one, remember, we're reading I think Friday night, the one grinding in the field and one's taken, and remains. And I think Lot and Abraham are a lot like this, same scenario. I still find it really amazing to me in 2 Peter where it says that Lot was actually a righteous man. But he was vexed. He was vexed. That's where I went. He was vexed. So he didn't even like living in Sodom and Gomorrah. He was vexed. Yeah. But I think what we're talking about has a lot to do with the new wineskins as well. Yeah. Because the reality is that if we continue to look over our shoulder at what used to be, and quite frankly, before 2019, the world wasn't great either.
No,
you know what I mean?
It wasn't.
It just wasn't. We were wishing it was different then. But of course, then, like you said, Henry passed away. Everything changed for us here, but certainly not the world yet, you know. But then in 20, the whole world changed. And whether we like it or not, we are in a reset.
I liked when you mentioned that.
Yeah, we are in a reset. I don't think it's reset yet because we don't know where the reset's going.
Yes. Yeah, well, that's true because I mean, it's resetting to something.
Yes.
We just don't know what it's being set back to and change back.
I don't think anything is going to be set back to.
Well, you know what I'm saying? When you reset, you're kind of
going back to factory. Yeah, factory
you're
reset.
Recalibrating.
There you go. I like that even better. I like that word better. Because we don't know where this is going.
Well, and that's actually what I've seen is when I look out on the horizon, especially when it even comes to large corporations, I was talking about large industries in this society, I see especially men who have lots of money throwing it at random stuff. But I think it reflects their confusion. Like, I don't know what the future looks like. I'm not even sure. So I'm just going to go all in on this thing. I sure hope it pays off. But the reality is that this is part of the folly of the fact that they don't have God to look to, right? It's a very different thing to say, because I've watched the behind the scenes. I mean, this was really neat. I watched you when you were took over for Pastor Henry. And I remember many times where you had to make decisions that were based on no evidence from the physical dimension. It's because I believe that God is saying it, and you're not waiting for the signs of the times. Sometimes it would even seem opposite of the times we're living in. And that's something you can't anticipate. You can't work with God to say, show me a sign first, then I'll move. Because sometimes the sign is move. So the sign is God saying, move. And you're like, wait, I'm looking, Father. It's like, no, I said move. Yeah, go. And it's like, yeah, I heard you. I'm just looking to see.
I want to see what my options are, really, honestly. I want to see if there's more options. We need at least 3. Yes. So you want me to leave? No, I'm really not really feeling that one. But I will leave, and I don't want to go to the mountain. So can I have Zoar? Or can I have this other city? Because I know I'll do great there. So that's option 2, okay? And if everything else fails, I'll go to that mountain.
Yeah, that's right.
But we want options.
Well, and I'm thinking about what you said earlier to me when we were talking about how you're learning how to trust God. That's what I was hearing in it. But I think this is more of a principle of growth for us. It's like in order to grow into something, you have to practice. You just do. And dare I say, it's like, in fact, I was telling my wife, I believe that probably one of the greatest deceptions of the last 150 years, especially since the Industrial Revolution, and how we were able to make things prosper independently of God, essentially, right? I mean, because if we go way back, before a lot of technology existed, people had to purely trust God that their crop would exist. They could do everything they wanted to do, but if rain came or whatever happened, we might starve. So they had to just say, Father, keep this around. But I think the danger is that as we start to feel like we had more control over reality, I think especially now, I think one of the greatest follies of man right now is they really believe they're in control. But then, see, I think the greatest lie in that is that I told my wife is the idea that life is manageable. I said, I don't think that's true. I think you have to live in a certain measure of denial to believe that life is manageable. Only because I believe we're hanging on to God every single day. And if you're not, you're still in trouble. You just don't realize you're in trouble.
Well, you know, the whole concept I get excited about when I hear that, because in Revelations it talks about when this is all said and done, he's going to destroy the weapons of warfare, yes. And he's going to make plowshares. Yes. Yes. Why? Probably so we can go right back to trusting him all over yes. again, teaching the people you do have to depend on God. You yes. have to do this, because if you don't do this, yes. then we're going to end up right back where we are again. Because I don't think this is Earth's first rodeo. You know.
Well. I mean, obviously here we definitely believe it's not.
No.
In fact, and one of the things, I mean, it's kind of fun. I mean, I didn't expect to go here, but I'm going to go here. I do believe that when we look at Revelation, and then the prophets, but especially Revelation, when it talks about what's going to happen, I believe that the course was set from the moment that sin happened. Meaning, like, God just simply knew where it's going to go. He knew the conclusion when the beginning happened, because people are going to start. So here's the simplicity of what I'm saying. I mean, I'm sure you're waiting for like what nations and everything. No. All I'm going to say is we open the door to the devil. Humans start to trust the devil more. It starts to fall apart more, and then eventually falls apart, and it collapses back in, and we're back to trusting God again. But I mean, that's the entirety of man apart from God. So it collapses, but we just keep leaning into the collapse yep. until it finally collapses. Then people wake up and go, So what do we do now that it's all collapsed? They go back to the way that God wanted it to be. That's so profound, isn't it? It's so complicated, such a system.
Makes me wonder though, like what if we did it all right for a while? Like what kind of life would that look like? You know, the garden was right until it wasn't, you know?
Yeah.
It's like I want that future that you're going to burn Sodom and Gomorrah because it's so bad. Great, let's go. Where are we going? I want to go where he's going because whatever he's doing is way better than where we've been. Where we are.
Well, you're so right, because see, here's what I thought about. Now I'm gonna share a part of my life that is probably not considered godly.
Oh.
But I've enjoyed a lot of science fiction in my life.
Oh.
But part of what I've enjoyed is the time traveling element of it. Yes. But part of what I've been interested about the time traveling element is when the character realizes there's a fatalistic conclusion. So, like, if I don't do something, that could be how it produces the outcome I don't want. Yes. But if I do something, it could produce the outcome I don't want.
Right.
But what I like about what you're saying is I think the world and even parts of the church are in the conundrum I'm talking about. See, there's the difference of what you're talking about is if you focus on God, it doesn't matter what's happening.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Sodom and Gomorrah could be burning behind you, but you're going somewhere.
Absolutely.
But if you're what I'm talking about, I think you feel that. Like, well, if I do invest right now, I could lose everything. But if I don't invest right now, I could lose everything. If I do try to get this job right now, I could be in trouble. But if I don't try to get this job right now, I could be in trouble.
Oh, so you're having fear faith.
Yeah, you're stuck.
You are.
Right? There's no right way, and you're still going towards the conclusion you don't want. But it's because it's a perspective issue. It's not a physical issue. Because the point is regardless of where you go, like doors close all the time. But the only way that you can see the door that's open is if you're looking to God and not looking at what door you can keep open. Or can I pry the door open longer? You have to just commit to letting the door close and say, Father, take me to the next one. All right?
But that's mature thinking.
Yeah.
And I really think God is calling us to be mature. Like it doesn't matter where you're at as far as years in the Lord. That doesn't matter. What matters is where is your heart in maturity towards receiving the things of the Lord. Abraham was mature.
Yeah.
He was so childlike, I think, in his faith towards God. We were talking about, we really don't think he's an extraordinary human being.
He was a basic guy.
He's a basic guy. Yeah, God, sure, I'll do it. But he would talk to God. It's not like he was just just blind faith. He really had a conversation with God. But he was mature in the way he approached God.
Yes.
Even in his childlike faith. Mm-hmm. But now Lot, he's a whole different story. He didn't have any of that going for him. But yet God called him righteous. So I look at him, he's a born-again guy. Yeah. Okay?
Yes. He's a believer.
He's a born-again guy.
He reads his Bible occasionally.
Yeah, but I think he's just got his head stuck out of the birth canal, though. I don't really think he's really been born into the kingdom. I really don't. I was like, yeah, this is a great world. Can I think about coming out here? You know, that's what I think. I don't think he's really sold on God. But I think he's sold enough through Abraham's faith and watching what he did for him. Yeah. And I think that's the state of the church a lot of the times, is that they're not mature when they approach God. It's a gimme God. It's like, I don't feel good, please do something for me. Or even couched in love and care. I really care for so-and-so, so will you please do this, this, and this for them, without even asking God, how would you pray for that? How should I approach that? Because we've been trained that because we have the poor with us always, that we're supposed to take care of them always. Yeah. But that's not exactly what God says. That in our maturity, we take a step back, not to linger about what's there, but where do you want me to go? Not what church has said I should do.
Yeah, I'm flowing with this so when we talk about the word mature, where I go is, so what is childishness?
That's a good question.
Right, because that helps us define our term of maturity. And here's what I think about. If I take my 3-year-old and my 4-year-old versus my 16-year-old and 14-year-old, to have that ages correct? Okay, good. I just want to make sure. It's like it kind of staggers. Yeah. And depending on the month, it could be like the ages are a little off. Like you have a 17 and a 15 or a 14.
And a half.
Yeah, exactly. But I will say that now correct me if I'm wrong, because I may not be understanding you correctly. But when I think about my 3 and 4-year-old versus my 14 and 16-year-old, they have requests and needs. But the one thing that I can do with my older ones that I can't do with my younger ones, number one, I can bless them a whole lot more. Yeah. That's the irony. I actually bless them a whole lot more. Because my younger ones I need crackers right now. Yeah. I need something right now. Yeah. But I also have to gauge what I give them based upon their maturity. So there's a lot of things I don't give them. That's correct. But part of what I give my older children is not just things, but myself. And what I mean when I say that is, I share my vision of what I'm giving to them and why I give for their betterment. Like, I trust them that I can actually impart more to them because they know who I am, and so I can trust them to be better stewards with what I give them. Is that part of what we're talking about when we're talking about maturity versus childishness?
Yes, absolutely. And what you're doing is you're giving them the deductible spiritual reasoning.
Yes.
That's what I call it. You're teaching them why you make the decisions. When they're younger, hey, just don't touch the stove, man.
Yes.
Yeah, you know what I mean? That's all you need to know, because reasoning with them would not bear any fruit, because it's not a mature conversation to have with them at this time.
But I see how it's grievous, because I can't imagine my younger children never growing up, because the one thing that they will never understand is my heart. Yeah. Because I could never impart to them who I am. Because they just have needs, and they can't even apprehend that there's something beyond those needs. And that's really good, because with parents who actually have child idolatry, they base their love and acceptance on children who can't even do what they need. They could if they were older children, you know what I'm saying? Yes. They shouldn't, but I'm just saying that's not. I understand.
There's nothing, they cannot fulfill that need because a child is not capable of giving it at that level.
Yeah, they're trying to, so they do the opposite.
They do.
They don't actually gauge what the child needs. They have now inverted it to be, what do I need that the child is going to fulfill for me? Yes. Right, so it's inverted.
Now, the thing that we have that I feel is another level of this is that now, and then we speak to the church at large, okay? Yeah. So the church at large, from a prophetic voice, the church at large now is being spoken to as, are they mature or are they not, okay? Yes. So in a prophetic utterance, let's just say that the Lord was to speak, he has the ability to speak that word at every level that anybody needs to hear it. Yes. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I understand.
However, there is a maturity for the church at large it should be at that he is also speaking to, and he's saying what's going on.
Well, I understand what you're saying. I mean, we could just go to Jesus.
Yeah.
Now, granted, his disciples were a little rough sometimes, but still he expected them to understand much deeper than the audience that just came to hear him.
Right.
They hoped that Jesus hoped when he spoke, they got something.
But I think part of that is because they spent time with him.
Yes.
So they actually knew his nuances, what he meant by definitions were totally understood. Yeah. That's another thing in the church. Our definitions, we might say the same word, but it will not mean the same thing. And so that means that the church is still immature. It doesn't even know its language.
So part of what we're even talking about, I mean, this is what I'm hearing here, is that part of that maturity has to become less selfish. Because if we don't join the Father in his heart, then we're just going to be asking him for stuff. Yeah. And he can't share what he really wants to share. Yeah. Because you don't want it. Like, if it doesn't involve my needs, I don't want to hear it. Yeah. If you're going to tell me about my neighbor and how he's got issues, I don't care. Right now I have issues. Deal with me first, God, then I'll deal with my neighbor.
And that's a real thing. I mean, us standing up here, we're saying that's a real thing. We deal with this ourselves.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Selfishness is a real deal for every human. They really want to be comfortable. They really want to be okay.
Yes.
Because the garden taught us we could have that eventually. But the only safety we really ever have is in him. Like when you started this whole thing out by saying 2 children in a war zone.
Yes.
Their perspective will make the whole difference. Now, some people go, us, of course, will go, well, what about iniquity? It's going to definitely feed into that. Yes, it will. But I don't care if you're full of iniquity, and if you'll just go, I'm just going to throw it all down, and I'm just going to do what he said.
Amen. No, I'm just saying amen. Well, you know what I'm thinking about is that, I'm glad, it's almost like I'm reminding myself as we're talking. So this is really good. I think it's Isaiah chapter 58. Part of the blessing, right? Wasn't that about the fasting? Fast service?
Is it 51 or 58?
I don't remember.
That is one. I know which one
One
you're
of those
talking about,
two.
though. Does
Maybe
anybody
somebody
know?
will yell
This
out.
is the fast we call. It is.
It was
50. You were
58.
50. Okay.
So one of the things that actually I always clung to was ye old English word, where it says that he shall be your rearward.
Yeah, your rear reward.
Yeah, but it's I think it's rearward.
Yeah,
which
rearward.
means he's supposed to protect your backside.
I know.
And I'm thinking like that's exactly what I want. He's covering my back.
Yes.
So you move forward, he's behind you.
Yeah.
That's why you.
That's why we have
you
no
don't.
armor.
That's why you don't have to look back.
We don't have
Because he's
armor.
got your back.
He does.
So you can go forward. He's got your back.
He has your 6.
Exactly.
Ah, okay, yeah.
But I mean, maybe you guys can find it. It looks like re-reward.
It looks like
but it's
reward, but-
it's a rearward.
Rearward,
Rearward is protecting your back.
right here.
But isn't this interesting how it goes back to Lot? You don't have to look back because he's got it already.
Yeah.
He's protecting your back, so you look forward.
Yeah.
Don't look back.
Yeah.
But it makes sense. When you're self-protecting, you are looking back. You're looking every which way.
Oh yeah, you're lingering.
360 degrees. You got, like, I mean, one of the things that I had to learn where I grew up from my family, my background, was peripheral vision.
Yes.
So I wouldn't ever, if I thought there was a threat, I wouldn't look straight at it. I would go like this. I'm like, huh. But I'm actually looking over here, but I'm like kind of, oh, that's an interesting light. But I'm actually looking at the guy in the corner that seems a little funky, but I'm not going to look straight at him. I'm just kind of, I'm going to look like I'm doing something else, but I'm actually paying attention to something else. But really, this is a self-protecting mechanism that we have to let go of to live in faith. I mean, in fact, that's what I think about with Abraham. Nothing about what Abraham did probably made any sense to anyone around Abraham.
Oh no.
None of it.
No.
Every single day he woke up and did something. I mean, I think his wife, well, she laughed one time.
She did. She definitely laughed. I've scratched my head at Henry's stuff too, so I totally get where they were coming from. We're going to go where to do what? Yeah, I get it. Totally.
Well, and so that, well, I think about that. Well, I liked what you were saying one time when you talked about how you guys really embraced faith, like trusting God. But that was a muscle that you had to flex. So I think as much as it might have been uncomfortable at first, it's how you guys got to the place you got to, where you started to learn how to trust God, despite not having any clue what it's supposed to look like, right?
Yeah, and here's the other thing that brings it down to a more personal level, and I'm sure everybody out here and watching has understood this. It's like when you really thought you were doing the right thing, and you found out you weren't. That's kind of like, that kind of really knocks you, because where's your confidence was in you, well, obviously, or you wouldn't be knocked. I really thought I heard God.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But you didn't. It happens, and in your whole everything is shook. It's like, I don't even know how to think now, because it was such a big part of the architecture of thinking that it's like, oh, that was way wrong. It seems like, and quite frankly, I think that's the era we're living in, is that we're finding out the way we really thought is wrong. Like, it's not correct. Like, now it might sound good. It really, I mean, I'm just thinking of all the traditional things as a non-traditional Christian that I have done in the name of God, when he never said, hey, I don't want it done that way. Did you ever ask me?
Well, I'm telling you, as you're talking about this, I'm almost like trying to find a seat, because I'm like, I'm listening and I'm going, this is very interesting. I want to think about that. But
You want to linger.
Yeah, but hopefully in a good way. But here's what's interesting: as you're talking, that percolated up as you're speaking about this, is that I wonder. I mean, depression seems like it's definitely on the rise for everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I think in that depression may not be like, oh, my life is over. It's just like, why am I getting up this morning? I'm wondering if even amongst us as believers, it wasn't that it snuck in. It's that in small ways, piggybacking off what you're talking about, in small ways, a lot of our goals have been self-focused. And that's what we woke up and we were excited about. And so as that's deteriorating, we feel depressed, but really it's because our hope was not in the Lord.
Correct.
It was in something, and it could have even been a godly thing. Like, I'm going to accomplish this thing for God today that he's going to be so happy that I'm doing for him.
Yes.
And I'm going to surprise him by doing this thing, because he doesn't even know that I've thought of it yet.
Right, because he didn't ask me.
But I mean, I'm wondering how much of our depression right now is simply that as well. is we've made a foundation on sand, but maybe the problem is it's not really sand. There's like a little bit, there's a rock there, but there's also some sand on the rock, and we're kind of making a sandcastle, and we're trying to linger over toward the sand to kind of pull it up on the rock, and can we mix, maybe create a little path down to the sand and back up to the rock?
Right, yeah, like
right?
solar. Yeah,
Yeah,
like solar, yeah, can we do that?
That is, you're still in the plane, but
Yeah,
you're like,
yeah.
I could go to the mountain occasionally, you know?
Yeah, right.
Like the rock is a nice place for Sundays.
Right. And here's the thing, I think you started out by saying, or at least with me when we were discussing it, it's that the American dream
Yes.
is falling apart.
Yes.
Like, what is the American dream? Okay, like, what was it ever? Really,
Yes.
honestly, it sounded really good because it was. I think it was birthed in something. It was beautiful.
Yes.
Escaping for freedom's sake. You know,
Yes.
being able
Yes.
to make my own money, be my own businessman. You know, raise my own family the way I wanted to. There was wonderful things of which everyone's screaming for right now.
Yes.
Again.
Yes.
You know. And so the American dream to me is, you're right. Why should I get up? Who am I working for anyway? Who's getting the money? You know, like
Yes.
the questions are arising. It's like, what is this even about?
Yes.
You know, the only solid rock we really have is the Word of God and the Lord, because He was faithful to His people to document how we were supposed to walk this life. The rest of the nations, not so. It was not like that. Yes, they have writings and stuff, but it's not for eternal life. It's just not. It's not eternal.
Well, you know, and as you're talking about this, I think the danger around the American dream, even from a believer perspective, not from even from an unbeliever perspective, is, but God, we're your people. We've followed you. Aren't you supposed to bless us? Like, we haven't read the prophets about what happened with Israel. Because, see, the danger is that there have been many seasons where God has blessed this country, but the blessings are not just because of us.
No.
There has to be some if, then and but,
Yep.
to the blessing. If you, who are called by my name,
Humble yourself.
yes, you're going to make the decision to follow me. You can't say, well, but see, it's interesting because I came out of like that latter part of Gen X, where people weren't unchurched, but they're Christers. And I mentioned this before, but I was most accustomed to in college when I asked people what their religious affiliation was, they didn't even talk about themselves. It was a legacy. So they would say, my family, they've been Anglican or Catholic for a long time, or Presbyterian for a long time. So I'm a Presbyterian, I'm a Catholic, there was no personal interaction even.
It was inheritance.
It was an inheritance. And I'm wondering if we even view the United States that way. This is supposed to be my thing because my parents had it before me, so it should be like this.
Yeah.
When in reality, what are you taking over? What is this? What are we promoting? What are we building towards? But realizing that you can't just say, because of what has been, surely you need to bless. You're obligated, God, to bless me today based upon what my grandparents went through. Who said that? Can you find that in your scriptures? In fact, what I watch, it's funny because I think about the surfing analogy. I think it even was brought up on Friday. The way I would best describe the Old Testament church, Israel, is as like waves. Yeah. It was like they had their high moments, and then it would go bang, like we're way down here. Low tide, high tide, everything in between. More than a few tsunamis that took out a bunch of people. Yeah. You know, it's just bang, 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 bang. But it's but the consistency was not God's problem. It's the people would come to God, they would get their heart right, they'd be excited. Then as it started, the waves started to crest. This is why it would crest, is they would go, look at what we made. I mean, are we not the best ever?
Right.
Like this.
We can tell we're God's people.
Exactly.
We can tell.
I mean, look at how high we are right now.
Right. Yeah.
And then
we did a thing.
Then destruction happens because then the wave goes all the way down, and we're like, why is it falling right now?
Right.
All I was doing was just admiring my handiwork.
And I really enjoy the times when He says, hey, I want you to destroy everything. Oh, we're going to keep back. I'm sure God didn't mean for us not to keep this
Not
gold.
100%.
I mean, come on. I mean, you know, we can tie this. I mean, you know, I'm certainly. So we had a little bit of an interest of my own thinking. And, of course, we see what that happened.
Yes.
Those were the waves that just totally wiped them out.
Yes. Well, I mean, what happened from Lot's descendants, they troubled Israel from that point forward.
Yeah, yeah.
Moab was not really a friend of Israel.
Never. Except we got Ruth out of it, I think.
Yeah, that's true.
We got Ruth out of it, yeah.
It part of Jesus' line.
Yeah.
So yes, and I like that caveat. Like, good things can still come out of it, but at the same time, wouldn't better things come from following God?
Yeah.
I mean, who knows what sort of people could have come out of Lot's descendants if they had had faith. Mm-hmm. Maybe these would be, probably they'd be grafted in at some point. That's what I think could have happened. You know, they could have, God been like, this is fine for them to marry into your people because they have faith, they love me.
No, I want to talk about one other thing, because we're not supposed to look back.
Yes.
However, we are supposed to look back sometimes,
yes.
Because we have our Bethels. It's where we build
Those
the altar
moments,
and we go
yes.
back and we look. But those are times when God met us, not when
Yes.
life was destroyed. Those
Yes.
we are supposed to go back, because that's one thing about the Israelites. They sang their stories
Yes.
about how God met them in this and God met them in that. And I think that changes everything too. So when we're in adversity, we're supposed to sing the songs or remember the times when he met us.
Yes.
At great adversity, only because he loved us, not because we were even deserving.
Well, and I like what you're talking about, though, because see, and I think this is the point, is that sometimes we misspeak. So it gets too extreme. In fact, that's one of the things I really appreciate about you and Pastor Henry when you would be up here. Because he might say something that was true,
Yeah.
but probably the way it was said,
Gotta bring it down to...
yeah, it might have been interpreted as like an extreme position, when in reality he was just simply making a definitive position. But I think what I would agree with you about is, and then make the distinction, is it's the yearning part.
Yes, yes.
You can look back and reflect on those signposts of life where God met you. Just don't want to go back there. Recognize where you're at and learn from what has been, and you can reflect on what has been. But the idea of, if only I was back there, you know, because yesterday was where all my troubles seem so far away.
Yeah, yes. Need a place to hide away, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that song is very honest.
It is very honest.
That's self-pity, and that's
yeah.
that's this nostalgia and how deadly it really is.
Well, I belong to 2 support groups online. Mm-hmm. 2. Yes, they're support groups. One is for widows and widowers,
Okay.
and the other one is for basically old timers. You know, like we reflect on the way life used to be. Mm-hmm. So, and I don't mind doing that, because they're the ones where you get this crazy looking thing. What is it? And we know what it is. And so we have these conversations, and those are
I get you. Like old items.
Yes,
and
old
things like
items, like what is this? It was in my grandmother's attic. That was a bobbin to a whatever.
Yes.
But anyway, that's the kind of thing. But then they also talk about, can you believe with the way life is today? Do you remember we used to be able? And so they're longing.
Yes.
They're yearning. It's not now, and it's not, wasn't that fun? That was great. Yeah. And you move on. There's this group of people that it's the yearning, longing ones.
Yes.
And you can tell they're so depressed and their lives are miserable.
Yes.
And then with the widows, it's the same. And the widows, the same thing. When self-pity joins both of these situations, it's just, they don't even want to hear anything positive.
Yes.
It's like they want to linger and look at their stuff.
Yes. Yes.
And so for me, I felt like it might be a good place for me to sow positivity into this world. Not necessarily God, we'll see how that goes. But the reality is I've discovered that people that are really yearning and longing for Sodom and Gomorrah, they don't want positivity.
Yes.
They don't want to hear it. They don't want to be around it. And to me, that's the place where, how do I go? I want to go for that.
Well, and it's really nice that you brought that up, because it's important I believe it's important to your heart as much as to mine, that I purposely do not condemn people that are outside the camp, shall we say.
Yes.
Now, people might think, well, you're kind of mealy-mouthed, you're not taking a hard-line position. It's like, no, I just know I used to be out there. Yeah. And I don't want to trash people who are outside the camp. I want them to come in the camp. Yeah. So I'm not going to compromise Scripture, but at the same time, I want to, as best I can, work with those people to say, would you like to come in the camp? Like, I don't want to create such a definitive border between me and them that they don't feel like they can come over.
And I think as a nation, even down to a personal level, I think we have suffered great loss. Now, we don't have a war-torn country as such where you can see the buildings, and I can only imagine what the people of Israel felt when their temple, where the presence of God was totally devastated.
Yes.
I mean, their God to them was just gone, which because he was.
Yes. Yes.
You know, he left. He
Yes.
basically pulled up roots too. But what I'm saying is, so we don't even have to walk through that kind of devastation. But the American dream,
Yes.
is a loss because,
Yes.
what do you mean I'm not going to get to buy a house? Or what do you mean I'm not going to
Yes.
be able to have 14 kids I wanted to
Yes.
have?
Yes.
Or what do you mean that I must have a job if I'm, to be able to make ends meet, two incomes?
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
and it keeps going.
Yes.
And so,
Yes.
to me, that's a great loss and a great grief
Yes.
that's in our nation. And that's the thing that I pray against. I want it to be. I love the way you said it's like, come on, Lot. This is a new
Yes.
horizon.
Yes. Yes.
And that's what we have to be with the church. Come on, America. It's a new horizon. We may not know what it looks like, but let's do this. Church, it's a new horizon.
Well, and we've been living on borrowed time. I have a very different view of the past than many people do. If you want to know why I believe the 50s and 60s were what they were, is we've been living on borrowed time because I would argue there has never been so much wealth concentrated in one nation in the entire history of the world. Why? Because we were literally rebuilding Asia at the same time we were rebuilding Europe. That's a lot of business. That's why there were jobs everywhere. So we got fat from it, and then we're complaining that how come the fatness left? Somebody mismanaged it. No, it was fatness. I don't care if you create the biggest storehouse you ever have. If you're not putting back into that storehouse, it eventually gets empty. Yeah. And I haven't heard that perspective before, but that's mine. Is that I see post World War II, we were one of the fortunate, or shall we say blessed positions we were in as the United States, is we were not centrally located around a lot of other nations where this stuff was happening. So we could funnel things to Japan and China, we could funnel things to Germany and France and England, and we could keep them going, start introducing all these things, have this impact on all their cultures and all these other sorts of things from a distance, develop industries internally. But then the danger is, and I think this is part of that danger, is it could have been a place, in fact, I'm kind of grieved as I'm thinking about this. It could have been a place where we really did penetrate with the gospel during that period of time. But I think what happened instead is at some point we lost ourselves in it and started saying, this is a great country that will never crumble. Right. We're impenetrable. We're so great. We're so big. We're better than the rest of the world. That exceptionalism. Versus, man.
Well, that's the Israelites thinking too. He'll never destroy us, the temple, nothing, because we're too important to him.
Yeah.
We're too much. And I think we got that way too.
Yeah.
So where does that leave us, Scott?
Well, I would say that part of what we should hopefully come out of a day-to-day is maybe not with a specific how-to, but start to reflect. Maybe this is a time to start to really take inventory of where you're at. Have you still been clinging to the past? Which maybe, and you know what? One of the things I did with I've told my kids this before. If you lose something or things aren't going your way, I'm not opposed to you saying I'm sad right now. So you might be saying, you know what? I've been disappointed. I've been angry that I don't feel like I could have what my parents had. But Father, I'm going to let that go. So that means that you can go through a process of letting go of that thing, grieving that loss. I like that you said it was a loss. Grieve that loss, but now you have to start to look towards the future. You have to start to say, Father, I don't know what tomorrow looks like, but you're there. I think I almost feel like the best takeaway is what you were, interestingly enough, saying was too religious when we first started the conversation before when we were sitting. So, see, because that's the irony is I think the thing that you thought was probably least appropriate, I think is actually the biggest.
Well, I hadn't really said it either. Well, about doing all things unto the glory of God.
Yes.
Like truthfully, like I told him, I said, this sounds so like a religious spirit speaking, but I'm not coming from that point at all. Is that really, honestly, if you're really ordering your steps and all this in the morning, and it's like you're really asking him for you to be able to do all things to his glory. It's like, so he gets all that. So it doesn't matter it doesn't matter if I'm working in a concentration camp.
Yes.
If I'm supposed to dip slop, I'm going to do it to the glory of God. Because this is not about anybody else. Everything I do is supposed to be that way. So that means too, I struggle with loss myself for my children because I don't see them having the things that I got to have, especially my childhood, which I thought was horrible, by the way, back then. What am I saying? Anyway. But if I really purposely want to do this all to the glory of God, then I'm never disappointed.
Yes.
Ever. Yes. Because I'm doing it unto him, not to myself.
Well, I mean, I guess as a plug for people who weren't here on Friday, but I loved your one example about the whale watching, where you didn't get what you wanted, then you got what you wanted.
I know. I did.
But it's interesting, but it was almost like in the letting go of the desire that it came back.
Yes.
So you actually did get, there's nothing saying that people can't actually be blessed right now in ways that people say can't happen. What's my evidence for that? You're like, well, can you prove it to me? Yeah, Abraham. You mean to tell me when there's this wandering guy around who's being blessed, that he was blessed just like everybody else in the region? Was this a regional blessing that just spread to everybody around him? I don't think so. So can you be like Abraham? Can you be blessed and people can't figure out why you're blessed?
Right.
The American dream is dead. How come you're still living? Why do you seem to have more than your parents had? How can this happen? Well, it's easy. I'm looking for where my provision comes from, not from you. Opportunities are always around us. And I think that's the one thing that concerns me about people who look back. You can never see an opportunity. You don't see your opening. You figure everything's closed. You just assume everything's already closed. Nobody's open for business. It's all closed. Where can I hunker down and wait until the storm passes? Rather than getting out, start moving forward, and going, there's a need here. I like what Pastor Henry, I think, would describe it as picking up pennies off the ground.
Oh, yeah, I still do.
But that's still money.
You're picking money off the sidewalk, as we call it, picking up money off the sidewalk. If you saw $5 laying there, wouldn't you bend down and pick it up? Absolutely.
It's a long way down. It kind of hurts my back.
Yeah, but it's $5. Now, penny people won't do it anymore for. I will.
But I think you were right, and I do want to contextualize what you were saying, because I even told you this on Friday in preparation for today. The other day, I asked God to deliver me. Now, you might pray that prayer. You might have prayed that prayer. Oh, God, deliver me. No, I really, in that moment, I stopped. I said, oh, God, deliver me. And from my heart, I was asking him to actually deliver me. I said, I can't deliver myself. You need to deliver me. You can make it a matter of just words you say, religious statements you make, or you could actually, from your heart, really mean, I need you. I remember saying this in the past, and I'll see whether you agree with this or not. The difference between people who are being healed and not being healed when Pastor Henry first started praying for people. Because I remember he said when he first started praying for people, everybody was healed. That's true. And then at some point he started praying and nobody was getting healed. May I submit to you that the difference of why the people are getting healed at first versus the people who weren't is simply the type of people who are coming? See, because at first, the people who are coming to him who are getting healed were people who loved God and were just there.
They were asking God to do something.
Yeah, they had an earnest heart for God. He had an earnest heart for God. Can I pray for you? And God met them in it. But then here's what he started getting eventually. So I've heard these stories. I don't even go to church. I think I went 5 years ago. But my neighbor told me about this Henry Wright guy, and God answered his prayer. He had back issues. I have back issues. Maybe I'll show up and just see what he can do for me. But it wasn't about God. It's that immaturity thing, it's childishness. The people were starting to come for handouts versus the people who are saying, I'm pursuing God. You're pursuing God. I want to pursue him better. I even remember him talking about a lung issue that Pastor Henry had one time when he was doing conferences, I think from his past with smoking, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember he got a healing, but he said to God, he was like, I'm out of breath all the time. I'm going and doing these conferences, and I can't do it for you if I'm out of breath. Can you please get rid of this issue that I'm having in my lungs so I can serve you better? Do you understand that he was asking for God to heal him for God? not for himself. And God answered that. So maybe this is a perspective change too. Maybe you should say, Father, what are the things that you want me to do in my life that I'm not doing? And part of it is because I am not well. Can I start moving in the direction you want me to move in? And can you heal me so I could do that better? Maybe you're going to find more healing on the other side of that because your perspective is, I need to serve you, but I can't serve you in my closet. But I can serve you if I'm walking around amongst people doing all these other sorts of things that make me feel uncomfortable, so unpleasant. Do you know how much these people smell? But I'm willing to do that for you. You take that step out. It's uncomfortable. I might be rejected. I could be doing something else today. But see, when we talk this way, suddenly, you know what this actually reminds me of? A lot of those wonderful people in past generations in this country who made it great. I think we unfortunately, we look at all these politicians, and then we find out later on they were weirdos. But the reality is like, no, what made this country great were those praying mothers and fathers, those farmers, those people who just plowed and just lived their life, and you never knew about them. All you knew is that they built a legacy in their town, oftentimes just with children, who had their character, and those generations kept going. But they cared about others, they cared about God, and they just lived life. That's actually where the foundation comes from.